There have been over 200 attempts to split the state of California, largely because the state's two economic centers are a 6.5-hour drive away. While high-speed rail could reduce this travel time to 2 hours and 40 minutes, bureaucratic incompetence, constantly changing plans, and costs 300% higher than initial estimates make this California dream more of a nightmare. Here's why high-speed rail in California is doomed to fail. The first high-speed rail project in California occurred way back in 1982, when Governor Jerry Brown authorized $1.25 billion for a line between Los Angeles and San Diego. However, in a bad omen to come, the project ultimately failed due to a combination of bad economics, environmental impact, and the California Department of Transportation objecting to a private company owning the project. For the next 14 years, Californians continued to enjoy the beautiful West Coast scenery. Beautiful West Coast scenery until 1996 when the state passed the High-Speed Rail Act. This act created the California High-Speed Rail Authority, better known as simply the Authority, tasked with planning the construction of a statewide high-speed rail system. The Authority needed to come up with a plan in time for a public referendum to fund the project in 2004. However, the state legislature voted to move the referendum back to 2006 and further postponed it to 2008 because 2008 was the perfect time to ask voters to spend billions of dollars on a decades-long project. This referendum became known as Proposition 1A, which asked voters to issue $9 billion in state tax dollars to support the creation of a high-speed rail line between Los Angeles and San Francisco. An additional $24 billion would come from federal tax dollars and private investors, and the project would be completed by 2020. Proposition 1A passed with a narrow 53% majority, and the authority went to work. The planned project is split into two major phases. Phase 1, which is about 494 miles, is planned to connect from San Francisco via the Central Valley to Los Angeles with a target travel time of 2 hours and 40 minutes. A proposed Phase 2 would extend the system north to Sacramento and south to San Diego, bringing the total length of the high-speed rail system to 776 miles. For Phase 1, the authority adopted a blended approach to construction, which involves high-speed trains sharing tracks with Amtrak and local commuter trains, as if these companies like to share. This approach is supposed to reduce cost and construction impact on surrounding areas, but would also decrease train speed by 50% in certain sections. So much for high speed. Construction began in the Central Valley in 2015, but since there has never been funding commitment for full construction of Phase 1, the project is being built in sections. As of 2024, the state is targeting completion of the 171-mile initial operating segment, or IOS, connecting Merced and Bakersfield, which would carry passengers along a limited portion of the route, but this was not always the plan. The scope of the IOS has changed several times over the past decade, contributing to the mind-numbingly slow progress. In 2012, the IOS was planned to run from Merced through Bakersfield to Burbank, a distance of 300 miles. In 2016, due to changes in funding, the authority changed the IOS to a northern segment between San Jose and Bakersfield, the supposed Silicon Valley to Central Valley line. Finally, in 2023, the IOS was confirmed as the current 171-mile stretch from Merced to Bakersfield in the Central Valley. Since 2015, the first 119 miles of the IOS are being constructed under 4 design-build contracts that involve railroad grade, viaducts, and other route structures, but not the rail itself. Part of these additional projects increased costs by up to 45%. In 2022, the authority stated actual rail construction contracts would not be expected until 2025 to 2026. So we have a decade of constant changes in the middle of the design-build phase and still no construction contracts for the actual rail? No wonder the project is doomed. Not to mention, we haven't even discussed the more expansive Phase 2 yet. Phase 2 involves 2 major extensions. The northern extension stretches 115 miles from Merced to Sacramento, with intermediate stops at Modesto and Stockton. The southern extension stretches 167 miles from Los Angeles to San Diego to serve the Inland Empire with stops at Ontario International Airport and Escondido. Altogether, the nearly 800-mile high-speed rail project would create a more interconnected California and drastically improve overall quality of life. But this dream so far has just been that, a dream. As we mentioned earlier, Phase 1 was supposed to be completed in 2020. Yet it's 2024 and the IOS of Phase 1 isn't even close to being finished. The authority is now estimating the project will be finished between 2030 and 2033. Oh, and that $33 billion estimate voters were provided? It's now exploded over 300% to a whopping $106 billion. So what the heck happened? Well, a better question would be what didn't happen, as pretty much everything has gone wrong. Initial construction was scheduled to begin in 2013, but how much land do you think the authority had acquired by then? Take some time to think about it. Okay, are you ready for the answer? How about 0? In 2013, the authority had not acquired a single parcel of land, further delaying the project to 2015. As of today, the authority still doesn't have all the required land, but has acquired 98% after a minor decade-long delay. Part of the reason for this delay is there were hundreds of instances where utility companies like Pacific Gas and Electric had incomplete records of utility locations. Yep, a utility company that did $24.4 billion in revenue in 2023 did not know the location of all its utilities. This required the authority to purchase more land than it needed to ensure proper relocation. And as of December of 2023, the authority still needs to relocate 20% of utilities. Even after the authority acquired most of the land, there were still challenges with private companies. In certain sections, the high-speed rail line would share parts of the corridor with existing freight railroad companies, which meant construction required their approval. And you know what that means? Even more delays. In one instance, a temporary relocation of a Union Pacific line reportedly took 9 iterations of design reviews to obtain approval, adding over a year to the timeline. Additionally, freight companies can order construction stops at or near railroads during peak shipping during the fourth quarter of each year, thus narrowing the window for construction. While the authority was able to work through most of these setbacks, there were numerous instances where lawyers had to get involved. In 2011, 2 farmers began a decade-long project alleging that all the changing cost estimates violated Proposition 1A's funding requirements. In February of 2022, Hollywood Burbank Airport sued the authority over the environmental statement for the Burbank to Los Angeles segment. Airport officials argued that the authority did not analyze the impact of the rail line on the airport's operations and safety, violating the California Environmental Quality Act. Fortunately, both parties settled in November of 2023. Despite all the challenges with building California's high-speed rail network, the University of California at Berkeley conducted a survey in 2022 that showed that 56% of registered California voters support the continuation of the high-speed rail project. Surprisingly, this number is 3% higher than the 53% who voted in favor of Proposition 1A back in 2008. While we're not confident this project will be completed, with polling like this, it may be even more politically painful to cancel it. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to stay up to date with all things Health Geography Hub.